Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Noggins and this is the third walkthrough of my virtual reality project featuring the sets from Space 1999. This time around I have two updates, one major and one minor, and we'll just run through the minor one first. So over here on the globe of the Earth, you can see Africa, and someone had mentioned on my second YouTube video, the second walkthrough, that in the television show, the profile on the west coast of Africa was different to the map that I had used. And I just found a generic map online of the Earth, but then, coloured it to match the colours in the TV show. But they pointed out that the west coast has this indentation in it, which you see here. Now, I'd noticed this as well, but I really didn't bother incorporating it into my map of the world. My theory when I saw it was that maybe the Earth had suffered some sort of nuclear catastrophe, nuclear war possibly, or global warming even. But I never bothered updating my map to match the TV show. I mean, my map has things that the TV show doesn't have anyway. So my map has these lakes, Lake Victoria and all that, which this TV show didn't have. So I wanted to keep that extra detail. And I thought at the time, well, I may as well just leave the west coast of Africa accurate. But since somebody had pointed it out on the YouTube video, I thought, why not? I'll change it. So I changed this profile to match the TV show. And I also found that the TV show had an extra indentation here. And if there are any differences elsewhere, I didn't really notice them. To be honest, I don't even know if the Great Lakes are shown on the TV show. So that's the map of the Earth. Now, the TV show only had the map of the Earth. It didn't have the map of the Moon. But since I'm in virtual reality, I can have a map of the Moon. So to swap out the texture, you just go to the menu, and over here it says Show Earth Globe on the right, and then Show Moon Globe. So if we do that, we can see a map of the Moon. Now, I'd experimented with other maps of the Moon, and none of them really were perfect in all regards. Particularly the realistic maps of the Moon that I had, the North and South poles, the craters have black regions in them because they never receive sunlight. Now, that just didn't look good on the globe, and then I tried to fix it with Photoshop. I tried getting other textures and fixing those with Photoshop, and that didn't look good either. And so in the end, I thought I'd go for this stylized look. And hopefully this stylized look is more in keeping with the stylized look of that, in the sense that it's cartoony, it's not, actual satellite photographs. And so this, my theory was that this is more cartoony as well. Now, you can see these black outlines around the craters. Originally, I did it just with color, without the black outlines, and so I was hoping that with just the color, it would match this style more. But with just the color, the way that Photoshop interpreted the original texture, it didn't look good either. So I settled on this approach where I've got just basic color as the background and then the black outline on some of the craters. And I mean, this looks kind of interesting, I think. You can see you can see these linear artifacts from the. I basically used a height map that I found online, and I suspect the height map and a height map is just grayscale, white for high mountains and black for deep valleys. I suspect that maybe that height map has these linear artifacts in it. I don't know. But nevertheless, it kind of looks cool, I think. So, from a distance, it looks like that. And again, this retains that height map information. So light colors are high mountains and dark colors are deep valleys. And that includes the whole hemisphere of the Moon, here. So this is a low region as compared to this high region. So that's the Moon texture and the Earth texture. And there's Australia. We'll just leave it on that. Now, the second update is more substantial, And it is, I have finally added the computers to the main computer wall and to the side walls. So if we turn around, there we go. We've got the computers on the front wall, so completing that whole detail, and all of the computer and signage and labels and all of that stuff on the side wall. Now, I have to admit, I had subconsciously put off working on those computers because I knew it would be a big task going through all of the screen captures and trying to find information on each of the different style of panel, trying to get it as accurate as I can and all that sort of. It was going to be a big job, and it was. It was pretty tedious. But I'm so happy now that I finished it. So let's start off on this front panel. Now, these panels are actually all modular, and so they are the same size as the panels over on the side wall, and they're interchangeable. And in fact, these orange panels, there's examples of them over there. These panels, there's examples of them over there as well. Obviously, these handles, they've got them over there, and then these. It was difficult to get clear image of what exactly this was. I imagined it was some sort of ventilation louver type arrangement. Now, originally I had modeled it as you see it here. And if I look in the photos, it just was kind of this fuzzy, lighter, stripy thing. Now, so I originally modeled it like that. And then I thought at one point, well, if they are ventilation louver type things, that really would be there'd be maybe a linear slot or hole, and then the metal would be bent so that maybe you've got a 30-degree slope on those metal things with the hole going in. So I tried modeling it like that, and it looked okay. But obviously, when you look at it from one side as opposed to the other, from one side you'd be seeing into the blackness of the louver. And in none of the shots from the TV show did I ever see that shape being light and then maybe black from the different angle. That was always this light color. So I think it really was just a surface treatment. And so I reverted back to what you see there. So now, which other panels will we go on to next? As usual, it was difficult to get details of all the individual bits and pieces. And then also throughout the TV show, in the beginning episodes of season 1, there was a common configuration of all these panels. And so, for instance, this clock panel wasn't present in the first half of the series, first half of the first season. So I had to decide which panels I would put in based on which episodes. And so since the clock was an interesting element, I did put that in because even though that came in later on in the season. Now this clock, if I just get a bit closer, this clock, as you can see, is actually the same clock that I used over here on this comms post. It's the same clock. So on the comms post, there's just the hour and the minute hand. And then the other thing with the comms post is this circular cutout. It actually protrudes over the face of the clock, maybe 5 millimeters or so. Whereas on this detail, the circular protrusion is flush with that black frame. The other addition to the clock, in this clock, is that they included a second hand. And so that's kind of how it looked to me from the screenshots. Now, I did find one really good screenshot of this clock. It was sort of like from this angle. So from this angle, I couldn't see exactly what that text was. There was some paper tape coming out of this slot, so I couldn't see what that writing or those icons were. This bit of text was blurred, so I really couldn't make out exactly what that was supposed to be. But all of the rest was in really good, clear focus. So this stuff is all pretty accurate. And in fact, I found another screen capture of what all of that should say. So all of that is super accurate. So this is the clock panel. These panels, if I get in a bit close, we have the X3 and these sort of textured illuminated panels. This is obviously repeated all over the place, but that graphic symbol there is the same one that we see here, except for these green and white buttons. And so you can see there and there. This X5 computer thing, I found quite a good screen capture of that. So this is really quite an accurate copy of what that's supposed to look like. Now, these panels here, and a lot of the times these lights are flashing on and off and all the rest. Now, I haven't done any animated flashing lights on this part of the thing like I did up there. I may do it one day, but it's kind of involved to actually get these things, because this is all individual geometry. It's not actually textures. So to animate them, I have to animate it all. I have to export all of the meshes separately and end up having hundreds of individual meshes that go on and off and all that sort of stuff. So I haven't animated anything yet. But this Space Models Datafix 2, I'm pretty confident in everything except for this word Datafix. I think it says Datafix, but you know, it was a little bit blurry, and it could be something else. But I'm kind of 90% confident that it does say Datafix there. Now down here on this panel, as I get closer, I had no idea what that text said. In the blurry images, I could see the rough form of the four groups of text, but beyond that, no idea what that is supposed to be. And then this panel is repeated over there in two flavors. There's one flavor that's the gold, and then the other one that's white. This panel is repeated in two flavors over there as well, the orange and the silver. And you know, if I crouch down, you can see the reflections in the silver. So that's that. And that then leaves the monitor displays. So here we have a grill. Now, I assume maybe this is the speaker. Now, this speaker grill in the early episodes is stuck on to the outside, which is kind of what I did there. But there's a variant of that where this whole thing is recessed and the grill is recessed into the panel. So I went with the first version that I found. And I suspect that this grill might eventually be, I haven't got to it yet, but to be the same grill that goes here or something like that. And then we have the television screens. Now, this animation, this video, is the first 2 or 3 minutes of the pilot episode. And that's in fact the same movie that you see on this comms post. So if I look at that over there in the distance, you can see the same globe and the same stuff happening as you see here. So that's that. Now, this is the test pattern from season 1 that I recreated and I spoke about in the second walkthrough video, and that's the the same image that you see there and that I have here. In one of the shots from the TV show, I'm pretty sure we had the footage of Commander Koenig and sorry, I've forgotten his name. It's been a while since I've actually watched the TV show. I have deliberately been trying not to watch the TV show as I take screen captures, because I want to watch it properly when all of this is over. But anyway, so I have this shot here, but it does look a little bit fake that they're not animated and it's not video instead of just this still image. The problem is the video of them in the cockpit of the Eagle only lasts for like 2 seconds, and 2-second loop is just too obviously a loop. So I thought it was better just to have a frozen image. I mean, this is a frozen image, but that's kind of okay. I mean, the Eagle could just be sitting there and it's all just, a security camera somehow magically floating in space at that particular angle looking at the launch pad. So that's the TV screens, and I think they turned out really quite well. In a moment, I'll actually go through this whole scene, but by turning on all of these screenshots from the actual television show so that we can compare everything. But before I do that comparison, I'll just finish talking about the panels. So I think that's all I really want to say about that. So now onto these panels. So I guess starting off with this panel, usually in terms of the screen captures from the TV show, most of the action in the TV show will really just be centered around here. So there weren't a lot of clear photos of what's actually happening in these corner situations. That corner and particularly seeing what these graphs look like in these corner panels was quite difficult. But so here we go, starting on this one. I think as difficult as it was to get a decent view of the details of each of these things, I think I've got it pretty accurate. Definitely in the middle, it's quite accurate. But even this, I think it's the A and the 3 and the 6 and the colors, all of that, I think I got quite accurately copied in. And also from the TV show, you can see some of these buttons protrude out further than others. So I've tried to replicate that. Sometimes in the TV show, this green was off or on, or the red was off or on. So, for instance, that green is off and that green is on, and that red is off and that red is on. And so I'll just systematically go through. So that's that pattern, that's that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And then there were 2 here. And I think I've got most of them pretty accurate. Now, these green display monitors, I think in a modern world, they would be a dynamic graph. But in the 1975 TV imaginary world, these are all static graphs. And they never changed. I mean, the thing that did change is that panels were constantly being intermixed and changed and swapped and moved, and continuity just didn't seem to exist as strictly as it seems to does nowadays. So each scene, each episode will have different combinations and different orientations. But again, I tried to match the early episodes as much as possible. So these graphs, the shape of the squiggly lines actually matches the TV show screens. And we'll see that later on when we compare photos from the actual show. So that's those panels. These are silver as opposed to orange over there. These buttons. Oh, and actually these, this blue thing, that actually matches what was done over here. So on this panel here, we've got these light blue going through to dark blue, and that's what happened over there. Whilst I'm here, I did make a minor change. I noticed in another screenshot that I originally had this panel incorrectly modeled. So now it's actually recessed, a good, I don't know what that is, almost 50 millimeters. Whereas before it was like 5 millimeters recess. Before I go back to the computers too, I mentioned my TMA Easter egg, but I added another Easter egg. As you approach this sculpture, we get the theme music from 2001. Thus spake Zarathustra. But otherwise, everything else is the same as before. Okay, so yes, back to this panel. I always found it funny how they've got these computer input keyboards with no lettering on the buttons. I mean, that's I don't know how they thought that would be how data input happened in the future. But interestingly as well, these buttons are curved and indented like the real buttons in the TV show were. There are thousands of triangles in those little buttons, and there are hundreds of little buttons. Just adding this button panel to this wall almost doubled the number of triangles, the geometry complexity, when I did the file export into Unity and then into VR. But VR seems to handle it. I am constantly surprised how much geometry VR can handle. And then I guess the other unique panel would be this one. So many of these panels are just repeats or slight variations of what's already gone before. And that's the same thing as that. And that white rectangle is the same white rectangle. Whereas here we have these handles, and then here we have this configuration. Yeah, it's all kind of standard stuff. Little screws holding that panel in. Now, so that's pretty much all the panels that were ever on the show, except for one other panel, but that other panel type only came into play like right at the end of season 1. And the shots that I had of it are so blurry from such a long way away. I mean, that panel type that I'm talking about, it kind of had, I'm trying to remember, but I think it had like 3 columns of doodads. But it was so blurry and so far away, there's no way I was ever going to model it accurately. And so there was just no point even trying. So if I had that, I probably would have modeled it and maybe put it in the place of one of these others. But I don't have it, so yeah. So this matches pretty much the first half of first season rather than what was happening right at the end. So that's kind of an explanation of what went into creating those things. But I think it's always fun to compare the 3D model with the photos from the actual TV show. So let me just get in the center of my room. So there you can see the TV show and then the model. Here you can see that again, the TV show. Now, and you can see here in this, so this shot was early on in the season. So over there where you see that clock panel doesn't exist, and it's just a mirror image of the panel that you see on the side here. But then all the other panels are the same, the orange, this thing with the gold writing. And that's sort of the quality of the gold writing that I had. It's impossible to make out what that said. A lot of the times they just had snow on the TV screen. I guess I could have put snow on one of them, but I wanted to populate all four. This panel is looking at the entry alcove and the liquid dispenser. I actually found I don't exactly know what's happening here with the handle, whether it's a recessed handle or a protruding handle. It's hard to tell. Okay, so again, looking at my 3D model and then from the photo. So there's that button panel thing that's over there. And you can see these buttons, sometimes they're turned on and other times they're turned off. So I've got them on and off randomly. The downlights as well. I've got them up there. One day I may model these little mobile shelves. I probably should put in that little label if I ever find out what it says. And so here you can see in this shot there's the two green graph displays, but they're sort of diagonally opposite, whereas in most shots they're vertically opposite each other, so one above the other and not diagonally as this shows. And in fact, in this shot, it does show them one above the other. And in fact, that shape of the graph you can see is exactly the same as that one. And then this one is exactly the same as that one down there. And then the light blue to dark blue. I've got all of these lights on, but maybe I should change it so that they're a bit more random. And then this panel, you can see the D and then there's a pink panel underneath, and over there you can see the D and a pink panel underneath, or pink button, I should say. Over here. This is one of those scenes where this guy gets possessed and he does this super speed programming thing on these buttons. And again, green panels, no green panels, whereas other shots have two lots of green panels. Okay, I guess all we see here is the globe, which is around the corner of my model. And we can't really see the desks because of all the people. But there's my desks. I obviously have the doors open. This is the scene where this guy goes to reprogram the computer, and the rest of the staff try to stop him, and he goes Hulk on them. So here you can see the silver panels, and then orange, and then silver, 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 which is what I ended up doing. I think we may have already looked at this one. Okay. Now in the TV show, I think this here where you see the eagle, in the TV, in the live set, I think they just permanently had that graphic symbol on display. And then in post, and you can see they did a pretty bad job of it, they superimposed an image over the top. I mean, you can see here, it just doesn't line up at all. It's really pretty dodgy compared to modern special effects. So that's that. And again, you can see this panel and this panel are just mirror of each other, whereas I've got the clock. Martin Landau's in the way. We can't really see some of the panels. I might as well come over here. You can see they've got this really blown out circle of light in the middle, whereas I've done sort of more of a gradation on my one. And I think that's about all I wanted to show in this update. Update number 3. I don't know what I'll move on to next, possibly finishing all of the buttons and electronics on these furniture items, on these desks. But we'll just have to see what inspires me. And that's it for now. Thank you till next time. Bye.